Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Take Action Daily, where every day we listen to an audio that contains two things: a word of gratitude and a key reflective question. And right now, I have two members from within our community that are going to join me shortly in this video to share their thoughts on the word of the day. And so now is an invitation for you to join us in listening to the audio together. It's 2 minutes long, there's 20 seconds of talking, and then the rest of the audio, you can just close your eyes and reflect on the word. And so, with that said, today's word of gratitude, I'm going to share my screen, is simplicity. Simplicity. So, I'm going to play the audio now. We'll listen to it together. And then, as I said, we'll be joined for our reflections. So, I hope you enjoy the video and enjoy listening to today's audio. Good morning. Today's word of gratitude is simplicity. Simplicity brings clarity and peace to our lives. It helps us to focus on what truly matters. How can you create simplicity in your life today? Perfect. So I hope you enjoyed listening to that. That was the audio for today. And welcome, guys. Who wants to kick it off with their reflections on simplicity?
I go.
Wow, that was painful. Sorry for everyone for watching that.
Morning, guys. Yeah, even listening to the word simplicity was just nice. Like I felt calmer, just listening to it. I think that's one of the great benefits when we are able to simplify things. But then, as I started to think about the question of like, how you're going to simplify things in your own life today, I thought it was actually quite a hard thing to answer because simplicity is a hard thing to do. Um, and it requires a lot of just iteration. Often I find myself doing something that I think I've tried to simplify, and it's still pretty complex, and it's not simple enough. And it's just an always a reminder that we can always strip things back. I'm having some good conversations with mum at the minute about just personal training and trying to uh, just like almost just get back on the horse a little bit when it comes to trying to do physical activity, weight loss, and those types of things. And I think often things like that training can be a big area that can become, and health as well can become overcomplicated because there's so many things that you think you need to do, from training to nutrition to sleep to all these types of stuff. But when we start to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole of trying to do everything, then often nothing gets done. So we went on a walk yesterday and just had a good conversation about, let's just keep it really simple. Like, what can you commit to? Like, what's the bare minimum? And just getting things locked in and just taking things step by step, um, and not trying to get caught up in the noise of things. So I think, and other things that I've done as well to keep things simple is like go back to just pen and paper and like using a whiteboard and things like that, rather than get caught up in systems or using things on the computer, which are really great for certain tasks. And then I've started to notice that because of just all of the functionalities, I can find myself just the actual utility of that helping me to do the very thing
Mm.
can be a bit diminishing. So rather than do that, I just quite have enjoyed recently just going back to the old traditional way, pen and paper, just writing things down and just ticking things off. Um, I've also really enjoyed just trying to do more basic things, like just keep things clean, keep things tidy, um, and using that process as well whilst I'm doing things like hoovering up or doing stuff to just allow myself to just think. And often that's a really, really good way. So I think it's just a case of doing the basic things, but I say it like I don't say that like it's an easy thing to do because it's
Mm.
easy to get caught up in complexities, difficult things that we just go through in life, and we have to like experience some level of complexity to then try and then come back and re-simplify, and we just keep going and going again until we get to a point in the future where we're very good at it. So I think when we are able to simplify in certain areas, I think that is a skill of someone who's very well versed, well trained, and well skilled in something. So great word, and also just a great reminder to try and have that as an anchor, and trying to keep, if we're working towards trying to simplify stuff, then that's what we want to do rather than trying to think about making things more and more complex. And sometimes we might not even realize that's what we're doing. So, great reminder and a good perspective.
Very well said, mate. What a flow. For if anyone's not aware, we do these calls, start them at 5:30. So it's amazing when, over the last 56 days of doing this challenge and doing these morning calls on the weekday, how such flow can come to your thought processes, Rob. But that was very well said from everything you touched on there. So I really enjoyed listening to that and took a lot away from it, because definitely it's not you. Just before you go, Blake, one of those things it reminded me of was the very first gratitude challenge that I ran. This was my favorite word from that period, and this was in COVID in 2020 in December, which is strange to think back on in and of itself. But the idea that simplicity doesn't mean easy. So you've got simplicity and complexity, but actually it requires great difficulty to make thinking simple. And there's a lot of great quotes from you name it has said something about simplicity because of that fact. But yeah, I took that away from what you were saying there. But yeah, well said, Blake. What about yourself?
Yes, very similar to Rob, to be fair. But I think whenever I think of simplicity, I just think of clarity, like the ability to, I guess, to create simplicity or just to live with simplicity. It just allows you to strip away all that distractions, outside noise, stuff that just creates like needlessness. And I think in life it gets too heavy because we add too much. So I think simplicity just allows us to take a step back and realize that most of our stress just comes because we've created the stress. Like we've built layers on top of the things we actually need to do, almost because it's ego driven. Because I feel like the ego loves to inflate what we need to do, or like what we need to do X, Y, and Z. Whereas really and truly, you just need to do what I guess what you're meant to do. What's gonna better you? Waking up early, eating healthy, training, like the simple stuff in life is often the hardest to do.
Definitely.
Consistency. How simple is being consistent? Yeah, no one's consistent, really and truly. So I think, yeah, I think it. I guess complexity hides our flaws, and simplicity reveals it.
Mm.
Because if you're trying to stick to a simple routine, see how hard that is, and then you realize how hard simplicity is. So yeah, I think it's a real form of strength, and it takes serious discipline to work out what's like essential, and then walk away from what isn't. And it's something that I've always been trying to do, but I've never found a set way to do it. So I think that's just a human experience, and
Mm.
simplicity is probably the most human thing ever. Like whether it's like just a conversation, a simple conversation, a walk, a breath, gratitude. how simple are these things, but they just mean so much, and they create so many things. And then it took me back to like revising for exams and just exams in general, because the amount of times I've tried to come up with like a sophisticated
Mhm.
way to revise or put a scheme together to make me feel better about myself. Whereas really and truly it's just putting pen to paper. So so simplicity for me, it allows me to focus more. Like I said, it's like less to manage.
Mhm.
Um so yeah, it just really helps me work out what I need to do, how I need to do it, and when I'm gonna do it. So
Give
yes.
us an example in response to the question, how will you apply that today?
Yeah, I think the best way for me to apply it is just sticking to my routine. My routine's simple at the moment. Um, doing my pre-lecture, doing my going to lectures, getting afterwards, going to the library. Like it's very simple, but where it becomes complex is whether I'm trying to add new stuff in for tomorrow or for today. So I think it's about staying present, removing the distractions, and then just connect what's in front of me, because often what's in front of you is probably the simplest thing. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Nice.
And I'd also say it's so difficult. Like anyone can make something complicated, but to make something simple, it's impressive. It's impressive.
Definitely.
That's so good.
Yeah. Very well said again. I think your point at the end there about anyone can make things complicated is very true. And I think what I took from both of you, but Blake, your point reminded me of just stripping things back. I think
Oh,
when you take a layer back there,
say that again because
I'm
you
having
broke
some
up a little
connection
bit.
issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I noticed that. I think I accidentally kicked off the Wi-Fi. Sorry for watching this, and I'm being a bit laggy. But I was saying, simplicity reveals truth. When you strip things back and reveal what's underneath, it kind of reveals the truth to us. And the point that I was going to make was about in this world today, now, because there's so much noise, I actually find it very admirable when someone's able to make something simple or approach life with simplicity. And yesterday, I was in certain parts of central London, and in between meetings, I ended up walking into it's called the Japan House, which is basically a museum, if you will, and an arts exhibition center for Japanese culture. And it was just a beautiful reminder of a lot of the simplicities, because having spent some, as we were talking about before this call, in Southeast Asia, I haven't been to Japan yet, but putting it to more Eastern philosophy, there's a lot of nods to the idea of simplicity being integral in not only design and their shapes and their architecture, but just in the philosophy of Eastern philosophy. And I know we spoke about that on the other course, whenever that was. Um, but about making your thinking simple. And if you think about meditation, if you think about taking time in your day, even pausing to listen to the audio at the beginning of this call, is a form of simplicity. And that's a real strength, because you have to be intentional, I think, to make your thinking as clear in that case, which is what I get from both of what you're saying in in those reflections. So yeah, it's a word that is uh, is pretty profound, really, when you pause to think about it in that context. And I think it takes skill. But for me today, will be exactly that. I think I've introduced to you guys many years back the idea of systems thinking, and just the approach to thinking. If you don't know what that is, you can look it up. But for the sake of just mentioning it now, it's the idea of looking at the relationships between things, because we all have busy lives. Um, and for me, very busy day with multiple projects in moving parts that are completely different to each other. So to simplify, going back to what you said, Rob, um, maybe I'm not going to use pen and paper, but the idea of just lists, listing out, it's one of the classics in just going through things, but writing them down or getting them out in front of you. For me, that's going to be really helpful, just to look at the day and approach it in a very systematic way. But from a simple perspective, what is the actual core things that need to get done by the end of the day? It's a good reminder that it can be that simple. So that's what I'll do. Um, but also just the power of a conversation to bring it round to mental health awareness this month. It's very simple to start a chat, but maybe not easy as well. And I remember that because in the original gratitude challenge, I don't know if you guys can remember, but I had a set of rings in the garage, and I used the physical metaphor of doing a muscle up, which is basically like a pull up where you pull yourself over the gymnastics rings. And I was like, that's a relatively simple movement. It doesn't look complicated, but it's not easy to do. And so I think taking some time today to appreciate things that are very complicated but look simple, I think are really impressive, particularly physical skills or sports that people are able to do. But even just the best design architecture, I mentioned design, um, or, it seems simple right now. We're just calling and you're watching this over your screen, but what's going on behind the tech to make this happen, it's very complicated. So you can see that relationship in a lot of places. So I'll take some time today to become more aware of that, and then just have a simple conversation with more people. And to finish, I'd say if you're interested in finding out what we're doing to raise awareness and money for men's mental health in this month, growing out our moustaches for November, and doing that, links will be in the comments and in the descriptions. And if each of us have said anything that you'd like to chat to us about, then please, by all means, reach out as well. Blake, Rob, do you have anything you want to say to finish up the call?
Yeah, actually, was just going to ask you a question to you, Blake, after what you said about adding things in, and like when we add things into our life because of ego. Um, how do you recognize like when you're adding things in? Like, how do you know in your life that if something is just essentially becoming additional and essentially an unneeded almost layer in your
Yeah, it's
life?
a good question. And I have actually thought about this, to be fair. And it's typically when conviction becomes burden. So if I'm doing a task and at first I was convicted to do it, or I was strongly motivated by it, and then a couple of weeks go, or a week goes by, a couple of days go by, and it starts to feel more of a burden. It's probably because I've added stuff onto it that I really shouldn't have, or I've viewed it in a certain light that makes it more complex than it actually is. So I think that's where simplicity comes in, and how you can do that in my head is just work out what you're actually trying to get from this, and what you're doing to get it. And if it's more than a couple lines, then I think you've gone too far. So that's probably what I'll say to that. So yeah, if it just starts to feel a burden, that's probably where you look deeper into it.
Mm,
But then to go off what you said, Zach, you said things that look simple but often complex. And I also think the other way. I think gratitude. The reason why gratitude exists is because simplicity exists. And the way how I got into that is just because of breathing.
mm,
Like literally, all the guide audio is how does it feel to breathe? It's like, well, you breathe all the time, but how often do you pay attention to how you breathe? How often do you actually appreciate the art of breathing and what it can actually do for you on a biological level? I think about how simple the mechanism of breathing actually is. And then I thought about walking or just talking and all these things that are so simple and so given, yet so crucial to our existence. So again, that's one thing I'm gonna like go into today with is just appreciate the small things, the simple things. So yeah, that's the only thing I wanted to add on, to be fair.
Yeah, definitely good points. Good question to ask as well, because I think it's very, again, our generations, but not even just our generation, everyone today in 2025 going into 2026, there's more in front of us to make things more complicated,
mm,
even though they look like they're meant to help us. The phones being that way, you know, everything on them, the apps, all optimized to make things simple, but actually they are better at stealing your time, which probably makes your life more complex
Mm,
because you've got less time to do anything. So I think sharing is really important, and us three all share important attributes, which is the ability to listen. And I think that goes a long way um, with when it comes to making things simple, because if you can't listen, you can't take on board what other people are saying. It's very hard to understand whether you're seeing the problem in a complicated way. So
mm,
any takeaways is listen, and then taking action. That's what
Yeah.
I would reflect on what you said, Rob. It's like if you think you're burdened too much, it's probably because you're focused on thinking about it too much, overthinking. And actually, if you just act on the first thing you need to do, then it will go into the second and the third and the fourth, in a bit of a flow. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's good. And because I noticed as you were speaking there, both of you as well, I just thought about expectations, and I think expectations can stop us from being able to simplify things because we either have an expectation that we should be able to do something or it should be done in this way, or sometimes we might not realize certain things that we have expectations around. Um, if we're just blind to certain things in our lives about just the way life operates, the way society might work, and then we don't realize that those things might be limiting our ability to simplify stuff because we've got just almost just barriers and blind spots to our thinking. So I
mhm.
echo what you say there, Zach, about being able to listen, because to have humility and to question what we think, and just even without even having a conversation, without us, someone else challenging us, we have to almost challenge our own thinking in a healthy way, where we can just question it and be like, is there a reason why I'm feeling this way? And I think that is something that I've started to notice more and more over time. Is at times where I feel just feeling a little bit lost or frustrated or a lack of clarity, it's normally because of those things, like I've got like misaligned expectations with something, and then when I don't know what that is, and I don't often know how I arrive at the point of getting aligned expectations. But it's, first of all, I think just I recognized it more when I'm a bit frustrated. I'm like, oh, if I'm
Mm,
frustrated now, that must just because something's just not quite aligned, and expectations aren't quite aligned with, say, um, I guess a good example is in physio. If you're having conversation about um, treatment and recovery and this types of things, and for some reason I'm just not quite sure why I'm not connecting with that person, or why they're not doing X, and why they're not doing certain things. But it's not normally because of those things that are the reasons as to why the frustration seems to be there. It's actually something a little bit deeper below the surface that you can't really see, and that's like might be something to do with, I don't know, so maybe it's part of my own learning, or um, it's hard to give an example of what the other thing would be. But it's just a reminder that when you feel frustrated with things, to just take a bit more time. Take a bit more time to just listen, um, and
nice.
appreciating that simplicity is just a really tough thing to do, and just take time and effort.
Well said again. Definitely powerful reflections. Yesterday's video, or audio rather, choose simple tools. Looking for simplicity in life as well. That's what has come to my mind just as we reflect on that. I think the title was in the last video was the hidden strength in simple tools. Um, but then the next day it's simplicity in the word of Audis, which I've enjoyed every day reflecting on a new word of gratitude. So I'll end this by saying today's word is simplicity. You can go back and listen to that audio again, and then what can you do today to make your thinking simple, or focus on one thing? I can't even remember the specific question, but to simplify your thinking, um, have a go at answering it, and let us know. Reach out to us, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Guys, thanks for joining me again, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Have a good day.